Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second module of the Workforce Development Program. We're going to wait a minute to see, give everyone time to log in, and then we will get started. Okay.
Hopefully folks take a break from, well, maybe they're just getting their Cinco de Mayo in a little early.
Yeah, because we do have 17 people who registered. One person just called me because she does want to participate. She said she wasn't able to find the link, so I'm sending that now. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. This is the second module of the Bowie Workforce Development Program, presenting on innovation and entrepreneurship. With me this evening is Mark Lawrence of Incubate, who will be presenting about different topics related to innovation and entrepreneurship. This is the first of two sessions. We will have a second session next week, Thursday, again at 6 p.m. We're going to wait just another minute or two to give everyone a chance to log on, and then we will get started. Thank you, everyone who joined us on time. We're just going to wait another minute before we begin the presentation. All right, I think we are going to get started. Hopefully some more folks will join us as we continue. As always, if you have a question you want to ask or a comment you want to make, please type it in the chat or raise your hands and we can unmute you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
All right, first, let me say welcome. Happy Cinco de Mayo to everyone. Thank you for attending and spending your time with us this evening. But hopefully, I'll pull up a couple slides. I'd like for it to be very conversational. You don't have to conversate by it. You can either come off mute or ask questions in chat. But I wanted to take this opportunity to welcome you to the City of Bowie Workforce Training Program. And we're going to talk about innovation and entrepreneurship. And then we're going to start talking about how to turn problems into opportunities. So let me share my screen. So if folks can give me a thumbs up or let me know in the chat that they can see my screen, that would be great. Okay, I see. Okay, thank you. Okay, so as way of brief introductions, my name is Mark Lawrence. I'm the founder and manager partner of Incubate, and Incubate is a professional service firm that focuses on system levels view of innovation and entrepreneurship, and specifically how it impacts communities of color. We like to say we focus on purpose-built program in places that unlock innovation and creativity. So we do community development, venture development, and we offer a suite of advisory services to let folks know how innovation entrepreneurship is going on around them and how they can participate. I may be joined later today by my intern, Takaya Roberts, and she's a young CEO of Undefined Dreamers. And then June Evans, who's the director for the PGCC Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. So first things first, is there anyone, we make sure everyone's having technical difficulties, they can hear me fine. I think everyone can see the presentation, so I saw the response in the chat. What do you think about it yourself? You don't have to answer right now, but think about what you want to get out of this webinar and how we can best, share information. So I've played multiple roles around innovation, really working deeply with tech and non-technical innovations, working with entrepreneurs as an investor, as an entrepreneur myself. But now I spend a lot of time working on the system around entrepreneurship. So I think I have a broad brush view of what innovation entrepreneurship is and how it impacts our community. So feel free to ask questions on topic, off topic. And just to test to make sure that you're sort of getting some of the concepts that we're delivering, we'll have a few polls and I want to make sure you'll be able to see them. So with that, let's start with our first poll. So take, quick 30 seconds, complete the poll. So I can just get a sense of who's out there. Okay, go ahead and close the poll so I can see the answers. Okay. So it looks like folks are in between unsure and a little bit interested. So let's continue on. So expected outcomes for today. We want to introduce innovation and entrepreneurial mindset, like in thinking like an innovator entrepreneur, as skill sets for personal and professional success. So even if you don't become an entrepreneur, you don't work for a company, you start yourself, how do you take what you can learn from the mindsets to apply that to your personal and personal development and your professional success? Second outcome for today, we want to provide a sense of what it takes to reframe problems that are always here, always around us as opportunities to increase value. So let's get started and talk about some of the trending skill sets of the future, and then I'll draw some parallels there. So analytical thinking and innovation, active learning and learning strategies. A lot of these things have to do with sort of thinking outside the box, being creative, using originality, using some initiative, technology design and programming, critical thinking and analysis, complex problem solving, because the problems out there that we have in the world today are not one-dimensional, it's multifaceted. And we want that skill set to be able to think about complex problems, break them down and to solve for components or solve for the whole problem. Leadership and social influence, whether you're leading as a leader out front or leader in the seat that you're in, that's another trending skill set. Emotional intelligence, being able to know how to behave and gauge your emotions in different types of situations. Some of them stressful, some non-stressful. Again, reasoning, problem solving, ideation, and system analysis and evaluation. So what all these things to do, and what we talk about these skill sets, a lot of these draw parallels to how innovators and entrepreneurs interpret the world around them and create solutions. And whether you become an entrepreneur, as I mentioned before, or you're just looking into the workforce of the future, these are some of the skill sets that you need to understand. So I'm going to start now with a video that talks about the skills.
Hi, this is Darren Ike, author of Innovation Step by Step. And what skills should you focus on developing in your life? Why should you focus on learning innovation or developing your innovation skills or even doing an innovation program to help you to do that? Well, one reason why is because what is needed for our changing world and our changing world of work are some critical skills. I've looked at a number of research reports, and there are 5 critical skills that keep coming up. These are skills like critical thinking or problem solving. Can you identify the problems that you might be able to solve and see things in detail and deconstruct them? Can you do strategic thinking? Can you have a future vision? Can you create a strategy that fits with you or your organization for the future? Can you exercise creativity? Can you generate ideas? Can you develop ideas? Can you use design thinking to design something better that might be even different and new? Collaboration, you can't do this alone, you need help. Do you have positive relationships? How do you have positive relationships with others? How do you network and utilize your network so that you can do more together and collaborate and have teamwork and partnerships? And then also communication. This is kind of the hard work, right? If you're going to create an innovation or a change or something meaningful, sometimes people don't understand it because it's new. So you have to work hard to help them understand and also influence them to take positive action. And then when you bring all of these skills together, I think you'll be quite excited, right? Because, wow, you're leveraging the skills that are needed most for our future. And this all together becomes leadership skills, where you'll have the skill not only to do these things on your own, but facilitate it with others. You'll be able to not only grow innovation, but grow innovators in your world and in your organization. You'll be able to coach and train innovators. You'll be able to facilitate the innovation process. You'll be able to lead brainstorming sessions, and you'll be able to cultivate an innovation culture. So it kind of keeps happening. So those are the critical skills I'd focus on developing. So where do you start? What are the building blocks? How do you start to do this? How do you start to make these steps up to new levels? Well, I think the key is how do you build your skills to create and develop ideas with others? Because when you do that, you're leveraging a lot of these skills like critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, collaboration, communication, strategic thinking, leadership. Well, a great way to build your skills is actually through doing something real. So in our courses and programs, we guide you through innovation activities, tools, and techniques, and you get to work on your real innovation project, something that's real, something that's meaningful to you, a challenge that you get to pick that you like to generate ideas for. So it's helpful to have a guide to help you to do that, whether that's a book or a course or a program or a workshop, and to make that effective. And that will help you to take your skills to the next level. And if you're interested in learning more about these research reports from IBM, from the World Economic Forum, from Bloomberg, from the American Management Association, about what are the skills that we need most in our workforce, the skills that are highly desired but hard to find, skills that if you were to focus in on them, on developing them and learning them, that could be really valuable for your career and your ability to make meaningful change in our world too. We have a blog post about that at innovationtraining.org/innovation skills for the future. Hi.
All right, so yeah, that was a video that sort of summed up some of the concepts I talked about with the skill sets. And again, at any time, feel free to enter questions in the chat. We'll be monitoring and I'll address them separately or during the presentation. So let's move on and define innovation, right? Because innovation is one of those overused terms. You know, it's put on with anything like engineering and other things. So what is innovation? So if we look at the dictionary, the action or process of innovating, right? That doesn't tell us much, right? But if you look at some of the synonyms, change, alteration, revolution, transformation, breakthrough. Another definition, a new method, or idea, or product, right? So it's something new. So that's what you get from that. But why does innovation mostly fail though, right? Because it's something that's, you know, always used, always around us. It rarely fails due to a lack of creativity. It's always because there's a lack of discipline, and it doesn't need to, only if you let it. Like innovators are always those outside the box thinkers, very creative, and you come up with a lot of ideas, right? But what makes innovations come to market is those who have the discipline, the process, and the follow through to execute on those ideas and to keep with it, right? So if we believe that, I would tell you that innovating requires identifying the problems that matter and moving through them systematically to deliver elegant solutions. And that systematically is where the discipline comes in. And always when you talk about innovation and innovators, it's almost a very integral part of how we learn to do things today, because knowing what and where to innovate is almost as important as knowing how. The innovators often look at the hardest problems, right? So solving hard problems first, where there's no easy answer. So you have to do something revolutionary. It's not simple. You got to think outside the box. And, you know, these innovations aren't really realized until they're in the market and then get traction. People don't know that they're creating innovations, but they are out there in the marketplace. And most innovations are looking at creating something elegant, something simple, something efficient to a problem. So the fundamental part of innovation is ideas. So this next video is going to tell you, talk to you a little about ideas and where they come from.
For the past 5 years, I've been investigating this question of where good ideas come from. It's a kind of problem I think all of us are intrinsically interested in. We want to be more creative. We want to come up with better ideas. We want our organizations to be more innovative. I've looked at this problem from an environmental perspective. What are the spaces that have historically led to unusual rates of creativity and innovation? And what I found in all of these systems, there are these recurring patterns that you see again and again that are crucial to creating environments that are unusually innovative. One pattern I call the slow hunch, that breakthrough ideas almost never come in a moment of great insight, in a sudden stroke of inspiration. Most important ideas take a long time to evolve, and they spend a long time dormant in the background. It isn't until the idea has had 2 or 3 years, sometimes 10 or 20 years to mature, that it suddenly becomes accessible to you and useful to you in a certain way. And this is partially because good ideas normally come from the collision between smaller hunches so that they form something bigger than themselves. So you see a lot in the history of innovation, cases of someone who has half of an idea. There's a great story about the invention of the World Wide Web and Tim Berners-Lee. This is a project that Berners-Lee worked on for 10 years. But when he started, he didn't have a full vision for this new medium he was going to invent. He started working on one project as a side project to help him organize his own data. He scrapped that after a couple of years, and he started working on another thing. And only after about 10 years did the full vision of the World Wide Web come into being. That is, more often than not, how ideas happen. They need time to incubate, and they spend a lot of time in this partial hunch form. The other thing that's important when you think about ideas this way is that when ideas take form in this hunch state, they need to collide with other hunches. Oftentimes, the thing that turns a hunch into a real breakthrough is another hunch that's lurking in somebody else's mind. And you have to figure out a way to create systems that allow those hunches to come together and turn into something bigger than the sum of their parts. That's why, for instance, the coffee house in the age of the Enlightenment, or the Parisian salons of modernism, were such engines of creativity, because they created a space where ideas could mingle and swap and create new forms. When you look at the problem of innovation from this perspective, it sheds a lot of important light on the debate we've been having recently about what the internet is doing to our brains. Are we getting overwhelmed with an always connected, multitasking lifestyle? And is that going to lead to less sophisticated thoughts as we move away from the slower, deeper, contemplative state of reading, for instance? Obviously, I'm a big fan of reading, but I think it's important to remember that the great driver of scientific innovation and technological innovation has been the historic increase in connectivity and our ability to reach out and exchange ideas with other people, and to borrow other people's hunches and combine them with our hunches and turn them into something new. That really has, I think, been more than anything else, the primary engine of creativity and innovation over the last 600 or 700 years. And so, yes, it's true we're more distracted. But what has happened that is really miraculous and marvelous over the last 15 years is that we have so many new ways to connect and so many new ways to reach out and find other people who have that missing piece that will complete the idea we're working on, or to stumble serendipitously across some amazing new piece of information that we can use to build and improve our own ideas. That's the real lesson of where good ideas come from, that chance favors the connected mind.
And that's from Stephen, author Stephen Johnson, Where Good Ideas Come From. And I put that link in the materials so that you can look at that. So why don't we take a break and look in the chat? So how do folks feel about hunches and ideas? Have they come up with ideas to make things better or improve them? Can someone give me an example? And I'm looking at the chat because I have 2 screens going here, so I'm not looking away. I am listening. What are some ideas that folks have developed or thought of, or innovations? Okay, electric cars, yes. What are some other ideas that have become innovations? Yeah, because a lot of the times, often it starts as a hunch, as the speaker said, becomes an idea, and it takes a couple of years for it to take traction. Like, for example, the electric car was first introduced in the 1960s, I believe, 1968, or even before that, but they were, produced. It just wasn't, an idea or an invention before its time, but the same idea reintroduced, decades or so later is now becoming the norm or the standard. So often when people think of innovation, and thanks for the feedback on the comment in the chat, the first thing that comes to mind is product innovation, right? We're always thinking about products. However, I'll submit to you there are 10 different types of innovation. And the more types you incorporate into your idea, you use when you're thinking about your ideas, the more successful your innovation is likely to be. So let's talk about that a little bit. So again, when we talk about innovation, it's useful to diagnose and improve a current innovation or to analyze a competition, right? So usually innovation is looking at something, doing it better, whether it's faster, cheaper, or just revolutionary. A few are very transformational, but they're really structured into three categories, right? Configuration, offering, and experience. So we'll walk through some of these, but we know that out of the 10, they fit in these three buckets. But usually when we talk about innovation, or when innovation is celebrated, it's usually in the product and the product performance area. But I'll submit to you that you can innovate a service, you can innovate a brand, you can innovate a customer, how you engage with your customers, and that's creating a different experience. So let's talk through some examples. Profit model, right? All about what's a good way to make more money, right? Because we live in a capitalist society, economy, you need money to sustain yourself. How do you convert and create more value, right, into cash, right? And it's not all about the almighty dollar, but usually when you talk about profit, you're creating something that's solving a problem, but it's also creating more sources of value for your customers, which increases your cash flow. So the good ones that look at profit models understand what customers actually value and where new opportunities might lie. And then other good profit models challenge industry assumptions about what to offer, about what to charge, and how to collect revenue. And usually the last thing I'll say before I talk about the examples, they're long lasting and often become the standards for decades. So a couple examples. Dell Computer. So Michael Dell, when Dell Computer started in Texas, there was no idea of custom ordering and building your PC or your computer to suit. You would go into a store, you take what they have, and you would have to do that. But before Dell Computer, they said, okay, look, the cost of inventory, right? The cost of shipping and not knowing if the machines are so, we could create and be more profitable if we made PCs or personal computers on demand. So a customer would order it, they would wait, they would be built and it would be shipped to them directly, or it'd be shipped to a space where they could pick it up. So again, by reducing the steps and by reducing the need for inventory and for shipping, they were able to make Dell Computer more profitable. And that model sits here today. Because back in the day when Dell introduced their model, there were a ton of people in the PC business. There was Hewlett Packard, which is still there now. It was another one, Lenovo, which is IBM think tank. That they're still around too and been sold. But there are a lot of other brands, Commodore, but Dell's delivery model changed the way that PCs and people consume and purchase PCs. Another example of profit model and innovation is Squarespace. So for those that know about web and website development, previously it used to be very code intensive and code, heavy. You had to know this language called HTML and CSS. What Squarespace did is that, yes, you still develop websites, but it came up with templates. So you just really know how to drag, drop, create content, edit content, add pictures, and the formats were already there built for you. So they were able to charge lower fee and deliver more websites because they were using templates. So those are two examples of profit model innovation. Another type of innovation in the configuration side is process. A lot of people innovate on process. So a primary process that produces a core offering, it's really not business as usual. It develops a unique capability, it functions efficiently, it adapts quickly, and it develops market-leading margins. It's some sort of special sauce that can't be copied. And then there's patents or proprietary systems developed over time that protect that process innovation. Two examples there are, I don't know, well, so McDonald's. So the McDonald's French fry is patented. And if you have a fry here, or you have a fry in the south of Virginia or Florida, or if you have a fry in Europe, a French fry in Europe, they all taste the same. They're all salted to the right ingredient, heated and cooked for the same amount of time. And they're cut in a special way, which McDonald's has a patent on. So that's another sort of process. So the process for them making these French fries is protected by patent, and that's why they come out the same and consistent. Another example of process was Ford Automotive. And this is an older example, but when we used and went into mass producing cars, Ford was the first sort of auto manufacturer to automate or use the assembly line. So they had a process of moving pieces of the car. Like by the time it would start, you would start with the basic frame. By the time you move down the assembly line, you would have a perfectly operating vehicle. And what that was able them to do is produce more vehicles faster and get them to market quickly. So by them using that process, they were able to meet and create demand for their vehicles. Another type of innovation, we talked about this one, and this is one that's often gets celebrated, is product performance. And there you address the value, features, and the quality of offering. You offer entirely new products and line extensions. Usually it's the highest effort and spend to create those products, and it increases your return on investment. So you can spend the amount of time and money you invest, and when you create those products and they perform well, you get a premium return on that. And then it's easiest copied, right? So you drive the market. Your competitors start to do that. If your product performs, you start to see a lot of clones and copies of that. And two examples of that are Intel with their microprocessors, and then Apple with their hardware and software lines. And I'll talk about the Apple example for example. Yes, we talked about Dell with the PC, but Apple is a Mac-based environment based on a totally different platform. And what made this product perform well is that the hardware and software are perfectly tuned and aligned to operate together. Whereas on a regular PC, I can install multiple operating systems. For the Mac, there's only one. So that product performs, it's easily integratable, and those sorts of things. And the same thing with Intel. Every 18 months, their chips get faster and faster. So they come up with a new chip that enables more computing process there. So they increase the performance of the devices and things that they are put in. So those are two examples of product performance. So the last sort of group is around experience, right? So service is another one. So how do you ensure and enhance the performance and perceived value offered? How do you offer the best service? How do you make your product easier to use and try or be acquired by your customers? How do you create and reveal functions that otherwise may be overlooked? And then how do you elevate your product to create exceptional experiences? And how do you get customers and consumers coming back and again? And a perfect example of that is Amazon, right? As we know now, even during the pandemic, you can't drive a day or look out without seeing an Amazon truck outside in the neighborhood ready to deliver a package. And they have this service called Prime where they'll do same-day deliveries for things. So they create the superior service that causes you to order things more and more on their platform. So that's an example of an innovation in service. So last innovation we'll talk about is customer engagement. Understanding insight about your user's aspiration and transforming it into meaningful connections, and then providing broad avenues of exploration. How do you make your consumers' lives more meaningful? So a broad example of this is a whole social media craze: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I know new platforms, TikTok and Instagram. So what Instagram did is, a lot of folks used to take photos and take them, and you only share them when people come over. You pull out these big photo albums. What Instagram did at first was enable you to take a photo and share it online and make a comment on that. And they eventually evolved to streaming video, and eventually evolved for you going live to interact with folks as you're going through different unique experiences. So it enables you to give you a platform to engage people or your customers more effectively. And this way you get meaningful sort of interactions, or some call it distractions, but always an on time and connection with your customers or the connected world. So I hopefully, I ran through that pretty quickly, but let's start with the poll question, and then I'll pause and see if there's any questions in the audience. Please launch poll question 2K. So how many types of innovation exist? We'll give you, 30 or so seconds to answer this. All right, another couple seconds. All right, Kate, you can close the poll. All right, most of you got it, right? So really it's 10, right? So there's 3 categories, 10 types of innovation. But again, we'll have these slides and material that you can go over them again at your leisure. So I know I've talked at you for, over 30 or 45 minutes. Why don't we take a quick 3-minute break, and then we'll come back. You can stretch your legs, get something to drink. I'm going to grab some water and we'll continue on.
Okay, everyone, we're going to take a short break, 3 minutes. I will give everyone a 1-minute warning when we're going to start again. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you, everyone. Hopefully you got a quick break. So now we talked about innovation. We defined it. We talked about the different types. Now let's talk about the actual practice of actually innovating and doing it, right? So innovation often means implementing new ideas, creating dynamic products, or improving existing services to reach the next level of exponential growth for a company. From a business perspective, or from a nonprofit or for-profit business, it's really about constantly looking at new ways of doing things, creating more dynamic products to your portfolio, or just improving the existing services that you're providing your customers so that you can create that value, like we said, and grow. So let's talk about some examples of some new ideas that improve some existing services that were very dynamic. So a couple examples. So Uber, right, the world's largest taxi company, actually owns no vehicles, right? So what they did, how they innovated, they created an app, right? They put the ownership of the vehicles, and before used to be covered as taxi program. You would get your taxi, you get your medallion, and you grab what you get your ride. You'd have to return your vehicle at the end of the day, or you would take your taxi home with you. With Uber, your own car becomes that taxi. As long as you connect with the app, it gives you a payment system, it gives you a navigation system, and it gives you a way to connect directly with your customers. And you get to know, you rate them, they rate you. So again, that was very innovative. And it took a while, right, for it to catch on. It first started with luxury and limousine services, but now the average person can, open up the app, call an Uber, and it'll be at their door to take them where they need to be. So think about that for a second. Another one, Airbnb, is another example I like to use when we talk about innovative companies or innovations. It's the world's largest accommodation provider, and they actually own the real estate. And again, they leverage technology in an app. You can have a home that you rent out, or you have another hotels are starting to use it, and even large resorts are using Airbnb to deal with their excess capacity to make sure that their rooms are filled. So let's drill down and watch a video about the Airbnb example.
People love Airbnb because it's cheaper and it provides a lot of different kinds of housing offers that fit the needs of all kinds of travelers. You are not limited to hotel rooms anymore. Now, whether you're alone or a family of 6, you can find a unique place that fits you perfectly with the exact criteria that you like. Airbnb started off with customer innovation by creating a new market of people who would rent rooms in other people's homes. Before Airbnb, it was inconceivable to let a random stranger sleep in one of the rooms of your house. As a matter of fact, most investors refused to invest in Airbnb because of that, and later they deeply regretted it. Since then, Airbnb started to list full units on their platform and got access to a much bigger market, which is vacation rentals. Now that Airbnb grew so big, it all seems so obvious, but let's quickly remind ourselves how things were before that. First of all, the market for apartment rentals existed way before Airbnb. You could rent your own flat to someone using websites like Craigslist, but it wasn't anywhere close to the global success that Airbnb is now. So why was it like this, and what did Airbnb do differently? The main problem of this market was mostly due to trust issues, because most people were worried about the idea of letting someone else live inside their home, either with them or alone. What if they would break something in your flat or trash it completely? What if they're just crazy and dangerous people? This is a normal fear that many people still have, even with Airbnb, and it was the main challenge that Airbnb had to overcome. They managed to do it thanks to trust by design. That's what Joe Gebbia explains in his TED video, and you can find a link for it in the description. Using a robust system of identity verification and reviews for both hosts and guests, Airbnb managed to create a community of people that strive to behave nice to each other. Nobody wants a nasty negative review about themselves, whether it's for owners or travelers. So the review system is at the center of the trust solution, and this trust was carefully designed by Airbnb team. And design fits right into the value proposition block, as you probably already know if you have seen our previous videos. So, trust by design is the main piece of Airbnb business model which allowed it to grow so fast because everything else is just an obvious advantage. Airbnb is not a real estate rental company, but an online marketplace that puts guests and hosts in contact. So they don't have all the real estate and operational fees that hotels have. In case of hotels, their buildings are their key resources, but it depends on whether it's a franchise or if it's fully owned, etc. But for Airbnb, homeowners are their key partners. And hotels' key activities are hospitality management, but for Airbnb, it's mainly marketing, maintenance of their platform, and customer service. As of today, another important activity for Airbnb is dealing with local legislations who are under hotel lobby pressure to limit vacation rental market. But at some point, hopefully, this will be settled. Anyway, the fact that they are a marketplace creates two main value proposition advantages. Prices are lower than traditional hotels, and there's an infinite variety of housing offers, not just typical hotel rooms with double beds. You can find exactly what you need depending on the number of people that are in your traveling group and the housing criteria you're looking for. Airbnb constantly keeps optimizing the design of their service. It's very easy to book for guests, and all the steps are very clear when you're browsing the listings. It's also extremely easy for hosts to list a unit, start renting, and do all kinds of operations on Airbnb platform, such as collecting deposit fees, for example. So all of this is design innovation. As usual, it's important to reduce the number of obstacles for people to make a purchase, meaning to book an Airbnb listing, but also for the hosts to list their homes. Since the survival of these platforms depends on both sides, in this case, guests and hosts, the same logic of obstacle and risk reduction applies to the homeowners as well, so they can start renting safely and easily. That's the main reason why Airbnb put in place a $1 million fund guarantee in case of major damages done to an owner's property. So Airbnb started off with customer innovation, and once they got into the existing vacation rental market, they innovated on the business model in the value proposition block. Trust, lower prices, and offer variety. Now, where do they go from here? Well, Airbnb made it pretty obvious. They want to reproduce the same model where they are the intermediary in a market related to hospitality, so they created experiences. Think of anyone who is an Airbnb host who can also become a tour guide. The host creates an experience, whether it is a city tour, hike, a visit of secret places, tasting local kitchen, yoga classes, it can be anything. You don't need professional tour guides anymore. Maybe a host can do a much better job and be more creative than the traditional companies. So Airbnb is now disrupting this part of the tourism industry, just as they're doing it for the housing one. They are not changing or evolving their main business model when it comes to housing rentals, but they're duplicating the same model for a related industry. And because they can apply the same review system as they already have for housing, they can unleash the creativity of thousands of people who will create innovative experiences for travelers, and all of this for lower prices. Once again, people love Airbnb.
All right, so was a case study about Airbnb, and as you said, they weren't a hotel company; they were a platform that made online connections, and it was built around trust and rating and managing people. So before I get into entrepreneurship, I'm going to see if there are any questions on the content or what we covered in talking about innovation. And I know some folks joined a little late, and as Kate put in the chat, the PowerPoint in this video will be available for you to go back and catch up on some of the concepts we talked about in the beginning. All right, seeing no questions, moving on. Let's talk a little bit more about entrepreneurship. So we talked about innovation, the definition, the types, and we gave you some examples. And now let's talk about entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship still remains the backbone of the American dream. I don't know if this picture is familiar to all, but this is a show that's become very popular on ABC, Shark Tank, where folks will come in, pitch their ideas for the business, and try to get investment from the sharks. So this is an over dramatization of the process, but this does happen in states, countries all over the globe. And the whole idea is, with a good idea and a lot of grit, anyone can become an entrepreneur, right? So there's skill sets and things that you have to have, like the analytical, creative, and we'll talk about some of those in more detail. But entrepreneurship is available to everyone. And it's really about taking your talent, taking your passion, looking at your world around you, creating solutions to problems, creating value, and having people pay you for that. So that's really the backbone of entrepreneurship. And a call to action, right? So one little known fact, the rate of entrepreneurs over the past 40 years has been flat. So that means we need more people doing that. And as industries change, we need more people to consider this as an option. So we must equip people to participate in an innovation economy, whether as entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial employees, right? The day of the large firms, employing thousands and thousands of people, those are few and far between. So we have to have folks that even know how to work in the innovation economy, right? The gig economy, working remotely or working for smaller companies. And for that, you have to have an entrepreneurial mindset. So given that, 1 in 3 employers in the US seek entrepreneurial experience in their hires or an entrepreneurial mindset. And by the year 2030, there will be at least 600 million more young people looking for work than projected jobs globally. So people are going to have to create, opportunities and, and work for themselves. And then 20% of the new businesses account for nearly all the net new job creation and almost 20% of the gross job creation in the United States. So that means people starting up a company, they get traction, they get idea, they want to hire people, they grow. And then the last stat, entrepreneurs aged 20 and 34 have been on decline in the United States. Like I said, down from 34.3% to 25%, even declining more. So there's a call to action that we want to expose, make this, through programs such as this, provide this as a workforce or a talent option for folks if they're interested. So the first thing about becoming an entrepreneur is really thinking like an entrepreneur, having the entrepreneurial mindset. So I'll pose a question to all, and you can answer in the chat. Do you need access to a lot of resources to be an entrepreneur? What do folks think? No? Okay, that's okay. What other folks think? Yes? A couple others? Okay, so we're evenly split on the answer to this, right? The answer is, no, right? It depends on the type, but more the type, no, you don't need access to a lot of resources. Let's start with some vocabulary, right? You need to understand, a problem, a source of perplexity, distress, or vexation, something that's out there. A solution, an action or process of solving a problem. An entrepreneur, someone who creates and owns a business. And the business can be for-profit or non-profit. So there are a lot of entrepreneurs that care about solving problems for their community, social entrepreneurs. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that, creative, that create art, create works, creative entrepreneurs. But we consider all those in a broad category when we talk about business. So don't think about this definition of entrepreneur as a corporate business. It just creates something that you charge and you create revenue for, or you provide value. Risk, the chance of losing something or having a negative outcome, right? That's a definition. We'll talk about risk a little bit more in a second. Business, an organization, right? For-profit or nonprofit that provides products and services, usually to make money or to create value. And then reward, what entrepreneurs get in exchange for starting a business. It can include money, it can include personal satisfaction, independence, or positive impact on the economy and community, right? So rarely people get into entrepreneurship. It's really not about the money. I know that's a hard thing to say. I understand it most times, but it's really about something personal within them that they want to create. They'll be independent. They want a flexible lifestyle. They want to work hard for a couple of years and create something and sell it so they can live the rest of their years. Or they want to work hard, create things, and continually do that transform society or transform the communities that they live in. So with that, there are three main components of the entrepreneurial mindset: comfort with risk, critical thinking and problem solving, and creativity and innovation. And as if you remember where we started, when we talked about the training skill sets that they're looking for the workforce before we define innovation, a lot of these are covered in that. So let's start with comfort with risk. What does that mean? So, being comfortable with risk means evaluating the cost and the benefits when making decisions, right? So it's not physical cost, but whatever that cost is, or monetary cost, what are the costs of when you make certain decisions? Comfort with risk also being able to anticipate or think through challenges. You're not going to catch them all, but think through some of your challenges with your ideas, your hunches. Comfort with risk, be open to other options, right? You start one way, but you may not end. The infamous entrepreneurial word is the word pivot. So you have one assumption, but you change it because other options presented themselves. And your willingness to change course in pursuit of new opportunities. So part of that pivot because you want to enter a new opportunity or go after a new market. And then the last part of being comfortable with risk, you develop a plan to achieve your goals regardless of obstacles, right? So when you set a goal, it's usually not a straight line. You may take a few steps forward, may take a few steps back. But as long as you have that plan, you have that goal, it's your comfortability of, risking what it needs to do to get to that goal. So let's talk about this for exercise, right? So think of a time when you had to decide on an action that could have a good or bad consequences. What made you decide to act or not act? And what questions did you ask yourself in order to make that decision? So again, if someone wants to type in the chat or if they want to raise their hand and come off of mute, take a couple of seconds to think through that. And I was looking for some participation, some feedback on this. So again, think of a time when you had to decide on an action that could have a good or bad consequences. You didn't know either good or bad. What made you decide to act or not act? And what questions did you ask yourself in order to make that decision? And if you rather speak rather than type, just raise your hand and you will be unmuted. So do we have a brave volunteer out there that wants to engage in the chat or even talk about this or go through the exercise? I'll start calling on people.
All right, Ronnie, you can talk.
Oh, okay, cool. So the question is, think of a time when you had to decide on an action that could have good or bad consequences. What made you decide to act or not act? What questions did you ask yourself in order to make that decision? Is this in terms of what decision are you specifically, or just anything?
Anything. It's just anything in your life, anything. It doesn't have to be business, doesn't matter, but just think of a time when you had to decide on something and you didn't know the consequences. What made you act or what made you not to make that decision? And what did you ask yourself in order to make that, make that decision?
I asked myself for a decision like that. For example, getting a car.
Okay.
What
made you decide? Did you get the car?
Yes.
Okay.
And the two factors were, did I want to drive or did I want to have somebody else drive me somewhere or take the bus? Okay. And I decided to have myself drive. So that's that decision.
So you were more comfortable and you wanted to risk on yourself driving and having someone else drive you around.
Yes.
And then be able to predict your schedule and be able to move around based on your time and your schedule. Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
All right, great. That's a good one. Anybody else want to chime in? I'm looking at
we have 2 comments in the chat.
Okay, I'm looking at those now. Thank you, Ronnie.
Mm-hmm.
I did a risk versus benefit. Did the benefit outweigh the bad? So you thought about if the benefit outweighed the bad. Vanessa, would you be willing to talk more or give more clarification?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
So sometimes I'll just a random scenario.
Right.
I decided on if I wanted to go on vacation,
Okay.
and I weighed finances,
Yep.
if I really wanted to, spend money on the vacation, take time off of, my schoolwork, and I chose to wait to go on vacation until I was done with school because I didn't want to miss any days.
Right. Okay. Great. So you didn't want to risk missing any days of school. Okay. Yep. That's a good. So you were comfortable with that. Okay. And then Taiwan put in the chat, skipping class, right? And I decided that by not following that, I would be able to understand my work, and also that paying attention would be better than missing class. Okay. And then another example we had someone that said they decided to skip class or not because they knew that their grades were good enough or not take a test that they could afford to miss that class. So again, it's not a good or bad thing. It's just a decision. How do you make decisions, and how are you comfortable with the consequences of the risks that you have in making those decisions? And that's one of the fundamental things when you're thinking about an entrepreneur. You're iterating with this all the time. Comfortable with risk, right? Do I leave my job to go full-time on this company? Do I spend time on my idea and build it out? Do I talk to people about my idea and get feedback? So that's the whole idea about being comfortable with risk. Thank you everyone for participating. So the next thing, critical thinking and problem solving. That's the next sort of mindset component. And what does that mean? Thinking objectively about a problem, right? Problems are all around us. We have our biases, but how do we step back and think objectively about it? How do we critically analyze data, right? So it's not anecdote, it's actual data, it's fact-based. How do we use and think through a process, right? So thinking critically means I follow a process. I use deductive reasoning. I ask questions, which is there. I get input and I consider multiple perspectives. And then I use evidence and facts to develop and support effective arguments, right? So with that, here's another exercise for folks. So what are the most important things to consider when picking out a birthday gift for a friend or a family member? You can respond in the chat, or we can raise the hand, or we can call you and you can talk. So again, what are the most important things to consider when picking out a birthday gift for a friend or a family member? And believe me, this for some people, this is very critical thinking and you're really solving a problem, right? Anyone want to take a guess? Take a hazard guess. What they like? Yep, that's always a key thing, right? So you got to think about the person, what they like. What are some other things? What did the gift mean to the person, right? What would it mean to them, right? Again, it's critically thinking about what they like and how they respond to certain things. Okay, what's another one? I'll give you a basic one. Do they have it already, right? What do they have? What they, or if you know them well, what do they have? What is something that you know that they might not have or have in their possession? And again, what do they like? How much money do you want to spend? That's a good one. Yeah. How much money do you want to spend on the person? How do you value your friend or your family member, right? Come on, one more, because this one's this should spore things that will resonate with that person. Like for example, their favorite hip hop artist, comic book superhero, or something else that they do. Great. Again, the age and what they like, how much is the budget if they are sentimental. So again, you were able to do that pretty quickly, but you were exercising your critical thinking and your problem solving skills. And that's really thinking about people. And I know Mother's Day is coming up. So a lot of you all thinking, what can I get my mom, or the mom who has everything? So again, I do this exercise to say that when you hear the words critical thinking and problem solving, people often step back like it's something that's hard to do. But I will say to you, you do it in your everyday life. Okay, I saw a couple others come in. What type of gift? Right. So let's get to the third sort of entrepreneurial mindset component, creativity, innovation. And we talked about this when we talked about skill sets and workforce. Identifying problems and needs and come up with inventive solutions, right? thinking about things that haven't been thought above already, or trying new things, questioning the conventional wisdom, right? Do we always have to do things the way they've always been done, or there are ways to do them better? Taking those risks and being comfortable, like we said, we talked about, and trying those new things and challenging the conventional wisdom, and acquiring and making effective use of resources, right? When you're creative and innovative, you're very efficient when you talk about using resources. And the last thing is, because you're thinking out the box and you're being creative, how do you test out those ideas? All right. So this is one of my favorite exercises, and we'll give you a couple minutes here because I think we're going to be going into a question and a break. But I want you all to have an imaginary conversation with your best friend. I want you to write down 4 lines of dialogue about where you are going to go eat next weekend. And here's the catch. You cannot, or you may not use the letter E in any word in any line of the dialogue. So again, you're going to have an imaginary conversation with your best friend. Hopefully, if you can memorize it, you can, but it would be helpful to write it down. Write down 4 lines of dialogue about where you are going to go eat next weekend. And you cannot use the letter E in any word in any line of the dialogue. So I'll give you a couple minutes to come up with that. Then I'll come back and ask for folks to share. So take about 2-3 minutes to think about that. Grab a pen and paper if you don't have it handy. And I'd like you to have 4 lines of dialogue about where you're going to eat next weekend and not use the letter E. Let's take a couple more minutes, like 90 seconds. And then you can either post it. Yeah, if you could post it in the chat, type it in the chat, that would be probably the easiest. All right, so does anyone have 2 lines of dialogue they did want to share before we get to 4? Because I know some of you may be struggling coming up with 4. 2 sentences without the letter E about where you're going to eat. And again, I know this is a quick exercise, it probably takes more time, but again, give it a shot. All right, Ronnie, do you want Chick-fil-A? No, I want Mission Barbecue. Okay, what will you snack on? All right, that's perfect. Barry, down for Cisco's? I'm not done yet. Uh-oh, is that I'm not done yet with the exercise, or I'm not done? Because done has an E, there's 2 E's there, so I'm assuming you're not done with the exercise. All right. I typed it by accident. All right. No problem. Take a little bit more time. But good, Ryan. That was a good one. Any others? What do you want for food? I'm down for pizza. Okay, that's good. I mean, again, that was 2 lines. Anyone have 4 lines? Do you want to catch good foods? Fish, crabs, and shrimps? All right, that was good. All right, what other sentences do we have? Give me a couple lines. Maybe the 4 line was a lot, the dialogue. Give me two lines. All right. But as you see, that will close the exercise. But again, all great responses, but it forced you to think, we talk about food and going out to eat all the time, right? But putting that constraint on not using the letter E forces you to be very creative and innovative with how you respond, right? It chooses what certain food you pick. It's going to sort of direct the conversation, but it really chooses how you're going to interact with your best friend. So thanks for participating in that exercise. So why don't we go ahead and launch the next poll question? Okay, what are the main components of the entrepreneurial mindset? Take about 60 seconds to answer. I just want to make sure we get the concepts. Go ahead and close the poll, okay? You got it. There we go. All of the above. Great. Great job. So I guess we're at the point where, do folks think, in the chat, do you want another couple minute breaks to stretch, or do you want to push right through? We have about, some more content to talk about, but, we could stop here, take a break, or we could just continue on. So I'll look for feedback in the chat, because I know we've been giving you a lot of information, and it is a workshop. So we are giving you a lot of information, rapid format. So do you want time to process, or do you want us to keep going? All right, is anyone? I'm not seeing any comments, anything. So I assume we can keep going. Kay, any thoughts?
Keep going, sounds good to me. Also, June's been able to join us.
Okay, welcome, June. Keep going.
Yep.
Yeah, we want to enjoy our Cinco de Mayo.
Welcome, everyone.
When we get here. All right, so yeah, you joined at a perfect time. So June, we can tag team and talk about problems and opportunities. But the last module we want to talk about, today is really seeing problems and opportunities, right? Because we talked about the mindset skills and really thinking about innovation mindset, entrepreneurial mindset. It's a way of thinking, but it's really being able to see problems around you and see them as an opportunity. But again, I know what your beliefs are, how you feel spiritually. Problems are all around us. It's how we react to those problems, as how we, respond to them, is how we feel and internalize them. And again, some problems are insurmountable, right? Like death and dealing with things like that. But from a traditional sense, if you have the fundamental belief that within each problem there are opportunities, you will have that innovation, that entrepreneurial mindset. So this is like the corniest video in the world, but I love it. But it helps echo the point that I just made. And I wish it was high resolution. I'm almost tempted to go get some folks and go remake this video, but let's take a look and then tell me what you think.
That's not good.
Need this. Already late.
Somebody will come. Anybody out there?
Do you have a phone?
No. Sorry. Somebody. Hello? There are two people stuck on an escalator and we need help. Now, would somebody please do something? I don't believe this. You gotta be kidding me.
I'm gonna cry.
Well, something else left to do. Is it?
Hello. Hey, don't worry about it. I'll fix it in a second.
He said he can fix it. All right. All right. That's more like it. He says he can fix it.
And again, that video is very quaint, but it shows you, I know if you were thinking like me, 5 minutes after it, they should just go up the escalator. So accept that problem. And what that teaches us, right? Accept that problems are inevitable. And then really steel yourself to the first impressions is really about, taking a step back. And after the problem occurs, sort of doing some introspection and try to distance yourself from the problem. Again, I admit not all problems you can do this, but when in the context of this exercise of being very innovative and entrepreneurial, I want you to figure out how to distance yourself from the problem. And I'm talking about sort of general problem versus life problems, right? Because those are different sets. So I just want to make sure clear. I'm not enforcing my beliefs on you, but let's talk about it for the use of this exercise. And then learn to objectively evaluate threats and consequences, which again goes back to that comfort with risk. Because dwelling on problems from a business or just a general sense, other than life problems, can really cause stress and hamper productivity. And we need innovators and entrepreneurs to solve those problems to reduce that stress and to make more efficient use of time and resources. And if you talk to any successful entrepreneur or any professional with a positive attitude, right, and which is what I'm getting to, right, attitude, you'll find that one key trait in common. They have a unique mentality that enables them to handle problems differently. Rather than seeing them as burdensome forces of opposition, they see them as opportunities to grow, to learn, or to adjust in a way that they didn't conceive before. And it often leaves them better off. And this has a lot of benefits, right? And again, it's not a thing that you can do automatically, but over time, looking at problems as opportunities will help you to exercise, reduce stress, and really think like an entrepreneur. So here's an exercise, right? And you don't have to chime in the chat, but I really want you to just think through it because I know that was a really heavy topic that I just gave you. So just bear with me and think through it by yourself. You don't have to respond or provide feedback, but think of a particularly hard problem or difficult problem that you're having right now, right? That shouldn't be hard. Just think about that problem for a second. Now, I want you to close your eyes, and I can't see if you're closing your eyes, so I'm going to trust that you're doing that. Imagine this problem is a random hardship occurring in an unthinking universe that doesn't care about you or your evolution, right? It's a problem that doesn't care about you or your evolution. Now, still with your eyes closed, try to think of that same problem as a challenge posed by a universe that wants you to evolve and knows that you can. So put a more positive spin on that, right? So now, I know that was a quick exercise, but it's very useful to do that. And I do it every time as I speak through it, that it's all about mindset and how you frame things, is how you respond and how you react to them. So the last thing we have for today is interactive exercise, because again, we gave you a lot of content. We talked about where we started, innovation. We tried to define it because again, we contended it's this amorphous term. It's used very broadly, but in order to be innovative, you have to have a common definition of language, how you think about it. We talked about the different types of innovation. So there's 10 types. We talked about entrepreneur, the case for entrepreneurship, the entrepreneur mindset. We talked about the components of the mindset, being comfortable with risk, being creative and innovative, and just being out and present. And then we closed with this about seeing problems as opportunities. So in this last interactive exercise, what we're going to do, we're going to play a little quick game, and I'll give you about 2 to 3 minutes for this, because I think you'll be in a very engaged group, so this should be easy for you all. So we're going to call this a celebrity product innovation game, and you can't use Rihanna or Fenty, so that's why she's there. So that's you got to pick someone else. That's a visual. So you will brainstorm one or more of your favorite technologists, artists, athletes, and entrepreneurs that have their own product. So you'll think about them. It's talking about some of the we just want to see if you can think about some of your favorite people who market their own product, who have a product, or are thinking about a product. And again, it doesn't have to be famous or just someone in your neighborhood. One person gave me an example. There's a security guard that makes t-shirts and starts to sell them. So that was a good example. And I think that was on the Tuesday session. And then be prepared to share your thoughts and experiences. So let's take 2 minutes. It seems like folks are already going there. Okay. All right, who else? Can other folks think through and just do it randomly? You know, just type it in the chat. I just want to see if folks can think through that. Kanye and his Yeezy shoes, which are very expensive, by the way. Who's some others? All right, a couple others. Any others? Sorry about that with the phone in the background. Okay. So does his music and his songs, so is it Taiwan, influence you to buy his products? Any others? Any other comments? Or did you hear my question? Yes. Okay. So you like the persona. Okay. Any other thoughts or experiences? Can't think of one. That's fine. Anyone else? Give it a couple more seconds. Okay. So the whole idea for this, the unique look of the shoes compared to others that are out currently set them apart. Okay. So Ronnie's chiming in, right, on Kanye and the Yeezys, right? That's great. So the key takeaway, right? Celebrities typically have a strong enough platform to market products as opposed to an entrepreneur who are just starting out, but entrepreneurs often have limited resources to create a product. Some of the stuff we talked about when I asked you the question, do you need a lot of resources to be an entrepreneur? No, but you can still create products. Entrepreneurs are solution-oriented people, even seeking for a problem that they could potentially solve with a business solution. And sometimes entrepreneurs must be comfortable taking risk in developing product or starting a business. So for some of you, right, I think it was hard for you to think of a celebrity with their brand, business, or product. You know, do you believe that celebrity entrepreneurs market products that solve a problem? So do Yeezy solve a problem? I'm waiting for a response. I have my own answer. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Actually, no matter how you feel about the look, they do, or they are, I heard, or some of the most comfortable footwear you could wear. They may not look well for the fashion conscious or the couture types, but they do solve a problem. They are designed to, you know, alleviate stress on your foot and when you're walking. So they do solve a problem. I don't know how you feel about how they look, but they do solve a problem. And do you think that yes, and this goes back to what we were just talking about. Do you think these products are a direct reflection of the celebrity entrepreneur and why? Right. So with that, June, I don't know, I know you chimed in, but we do these sessions often. And the next session is really be focused on design thinking where we chime in. I don't know if you have any comments, any feedback, but you know the material that we cover. We talked about the typical things we talk about with InnoHub, who's our partner in delivering these services. But we like to work with folks that have ideas and we want to help them, give them products or solutions or support to take it there. So June, I don't know if you have any comments or anything you wanted to add.
Oh, no, sorry I was late, but I'm so glad to see a number of you that have joined Mark and the InnoHub today on the entrepreneurship workshop. As Mark had mentioned, you know, we're setting the foundation, and the first thing is to develop that entrepreneurial mindset. And when Mark talked about problem solving, critical thinking, it's really just a way that you view the world. You can go anywhere, and instead of seeing a problem and not really trying to see if there's a solution to the problem, or even if you can create a solution to that problem, is not what innovators or entrepreneurs do, right? We are problem solvers. So we may identify problems, but our mind directly goes to, there's a need. How can we fill it? So when you have that mindset, it's almost like you can create anything, right? And that's what innovation is about. Some people think that it's like you have to have an idea first, and then you work through that idea and you bring it to market, but that's not really necessarily true. You don't even have to have an idea, but if you develop the entrepreneurial mindset, I guarantee you can go through life, and as you face problems, you'll start to develop solutions for the problems that you face. And then one day you can say, I'm going to create that solution. That's going to be my thing. I'm going to do that. And that's what this workshop is all about.
Thank you. Well said. So with that, again, you don't have to believe us. There's a lot of materials about this. So these are the books that sort of dive deeper in some of the concepts. Kay will make that available in the presentation. And here are a couple of links that really talk about innovation, entrepreneurship, and opportunities, how to see problems as opportunities. So with that, Kay, I'll close out our portion of the presentation and turn it back over to you.
All right, thanks very much, Mark and June. And thank you everyone who participated in the chat and asked questions. This is the first of 2 presentations that we're going to hold on this topic. The second one will be next week, again on Thursday evening at 6 p.m. And Mark will also be presenting on that evening. As always, if you have questions or things that you want to follow up on, please let me know. I'll give you Mark's contact information, and I will send a follow-up email with everyone with a survey for you to fill out briefly about how this session went. But we do have one question for Mark from Sharon. Do you share information for business so I can learn how to access contracts as a startup new business?
Yes, we do. So if you go to InnoHub site, you can schedule time hours with us, and we could talk about what type of contracts, what type of business, but we really want to learn more, and we'll cover that in the next session as well when we talk about design thinking. So what type of contracts are you start before you even start the business is a demand, but the short answer to that is yes, we share information on that. If you could tell us something specifically looking for, we can talk about it now, or we can have a more in-depth sort of consultation and workshop session to talk with you specifically. And I assume we're talking about, is it government contracts? Is it, airport contracts? What type of contracts are we talking about? Just so I can maybe give you an answer now.
And Sharon, I've allowed you to unmute if you want to just ask your question directly instead of typing it.
Yes, the government contracts, but I think consultation would be more beneficial. I just wanted to know if y'all have access to that information.
Yes, we do. And we'll provide that information, the link to talk to us.
So should I call or?
Yes, we'll send you the link. So in the materials, I think there's a link. So we'll get the information to Kay to you, and you can schedule a book a time with us to talk more about the idea around government contracting.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you for your time and your engagement on Cinco de Mayo. I know for some of you, that's a very important day. But hopefully you got something out of this. The materials will be available. I'll see you all next week. Looking forward to the second part of the workshop.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Keep an eye out for my email, and we will see you guys next week. Good night, everyone.